for a minute so people have a proper background?
Yeah, of course. So I've been working within the AI space since 2006, where I started to help companies to understand how we can build smarter solutions. And when I say smarter, it's not obvious what smart means to everyone, but it's obvious that we want to create something that in a way helps us. And for each and every company that I work with, that means different things. But to the consuming end, it sort of means the same thing. To take shortcuts, to support us in our decision-making matrix in a way, and to actually use whatever insight we have about a certain behavior or a certain expected outcome. And then with that, create something that can be designed to fit more people in a learning pattern in a way.
Okay, so I think when we met in Riyadh, your main topic was AI already. I think it started all in the beginning of this year, and there's no escape actually from this topic, but still we are scratching the surface. I think the vision service on ChatGPT was just announced or presented like 2 weeks ago, so it's crazy what's going on. You might have seen me on LinkedIn speaking Chinese and Hindi. It's actually very good Chinese, I was told by people that can speak Mandarin. But when you're seeing many, you're doing a lot of keynotes and you're visiting many companies, so
from let's say the last 4 weeks, all the companies you visited, so the level of acceptance of AI and the level of introducing AI into operational work, how far is it? Have you seen companies really progressing in it, or are we still in the very, very early stages where people are rather saying, no, it's not, it's data is not safe, jobs are not safe, we should be a bit slow with it?
AI development is moving fast. The adoption is not moving as fast. There are some early adopters for sure, and some big companies are these early adopters. But what we see at most is that the smaller companies are better at adopting or making use of this technology. But we are definitely in the very early stage. There are so many interesting things going on at the same time as there's so many challenging areas and complications, and the opportunities are incredible. So if you're not experimenting in this space, you will definitely be left behind.
So it feels a bit for me like in 2005 when obviously e-commerce really started to take off in Germany, and then the classical companies like brick and mortar companies, mail order companies, their excuse not to take part on this kind of journey, not to be compared with Amazon was, our customers are different. How we sell is different. It's not e-commerce. Do you see like a similar excuse pattern now with AI?
I would say that there is similarities for sure, but with AI it's more complicated in terms of you want to share your data so that the model in a way can be trained on it so that you can make wiser predictions, but at the same time you don't want to share your data.
Okay, got it. So let's put a bit more flesh on the bone. So let's assume you are like CEO of what example did I use? A furniture company. Furniture company started like in 2013, online furniture obviously.
Yep.
We had some here in Germany, West Wing, Home24, Avandeo, and many more. And you had like a sensational 10 years ride. Let's assume logistics worked out, because like this two-man handling logistics is obviously a problem in many countries. But let's assume everything worked out fine, and you have now your website in like 3 markets, 20,000 SKUs, whatever. So if you go now through like the whole org chart, from procurement through finance through marketing, so what would you change? Maybe let's start with marketing, because furniture is a complicated market because there's not so many brands. So you usually have to work with settings, living rooms, beds, whatever. So you as a CEO of this furniture company, what do you tell the CMO or the marketing team to change? What should they adapt? What should they look at when it comes to AI?
So if we're looking at how to attract customers to actually come to the store, what we can do with AI today is to actually mass produce ads in a way. But we can also mass produce content. And with this content, we can base it on what our customers are already saying about us, and in our product reviews and so on, emphasize the things that they like, and potentially to drive trust. Maybe we can emphasize some of the things that they dislike, just to show that we are trying to be honest about what it is that we're achieving here and how we present this, so that we don't just push products, but actually push trust in a way.
Okay, let's maybe operationalize it a bit. Like, what does it mean, more content? Would this mean you take a sofa in front of a white screen and go to Midjourney and say, put the sofa in, here we are now in summer. Obviously, I want to have like summer moods for this sofa, and then we are moving to autumn. I want to have like autumn moods for the sofa. Going to winter, I want to have like winter moods for the sofa. And obviously, the CMO, and I want to be like its advocate here, is I would say, we don't have anybody in our company who is able to write those prompts, and actually our PIM system cannot handle like more than 5 pictures for the sofa, and I don't know how to operate. Very good idea, Karl, but no chance we can this put into practice.
Yeah, so in that case, maybe you should start an experiment as a side project and not be limited by your current PIM.
So outsourcing something on a different domain, or like what would be focusing on 2-3 products?
Yeah. So run an experiment with 1 or 2 products as an example, and then start to see, okay, so what more can be achieved if we do this using some other solution that our current solution is limiting us so that we can't pressure test or experiment with.
Who's the best person in the company writing those prompts for the sofa? And this prompt could be, this sofa in a safari kind of mood in front of the Alps. Yeah, so obviously very creative prompt. So who should do it? Because today nobody's doing it. Today people are happy that they can do the sofa in front of a white screen, more or less, and that's complicated enough. And the last innovation that came in content marketing was 3D pictures. So they have like a studio where the sofa is like moving around in front of like 3 cameras. So who should do it?
I would like to say everyone. Maybe not everyone should do it, but everyone should understand the logic behind it. Because if all of us connect like puzzle pieces and have the same logical background about prompt engineering and so on, then maybe we actually move ourselves as an organization much faster towards the future, so to say. So to start with, maybe you should consider having an internal workshop about prompt engineering.
Manfred from the finance team should start sofa prompts? I'm trying to be devil's advocate.
Yeah.
Because in real life, it's not so easy to do.
No, but if we play with that idea and look at this from his point of view, if he don't understand what it is that we're trying to make in these experiments, he will probably say no to the experiment because he sees that we're just wasting money here.
Yes.
How much time should we give ourselves for experiments? Because like 15 years ago, when e-commerce started, experiments usually took like a year.
Yep.
We should test this channel and see how it works, and then we can shift resources from mail order, from brick and mortar into like e-commerce. So what is a smart experiment time today?
In this case, if we're talking about driving traffic, then start with an experiment just for a couple of weeks and see how much you learn from that experience. Because we're not talking about running an experiment for months and months. We're talking about pressure testing the market to see what we can collect as intel that might change our way of working in the long run.
But how do you counter the argument that everybody's like overwhelmed with work already, so they don't know how to find time for this kind of stuff? How should they prioritize? Because just like the recent project doing 3D pictures of old sofas in their assortment has not been finished, has not even been started like for some assortments, and now Karl is coming, telling the team that even Manfred should do prompts. So
yeah.
How would you manage this?
This is one of the most tricky questions for any company, I would say. How can you find more time? Because you don't have more time, you're already at full capacity. And you can't just start recruiting people for an experiment. In most companies, you wouldn't do that anyhow. So you should see it as an investment rather than just an experiment, because you're investing in your future. And if you don't do that, you will be left behind. Again, if you don't start working with these different tools, methods, this new way of building experiments and running creative projects, then your competitors will do that. And you can't afford to let your competitors do that without having a good understanding on your own.
I like this approach much more because like most of the changes we see in companies are not driven by ambition. So they're driven by fear. And
Yep.
we show them videos of Chinese companies doing AI prompts and showing how they produce so far images that creates more immediate action
Yep.
than usually, okay, let's sit together and think about what could happen in the future, for sure. Okay, let's maybe move, we have not so much time left, but maybe we can discuss like 2 or 3 departments more. Let's go to Manfred's department, the finance department. And usually those are responsible for obviously the P&L, how much money do we have, like for the marketing department, how much money do we have for salaries. Do you see a big AI impact already for his team? And sorry, I don't know if you've any Manfreds here in the audience. It's a bit of cliche, but it's true.
The impact within
His space and many of these other departments is that we are limited by our current capabilities. So he's working with a tool that have these limitations. So in most companies, you have this one way of doing things. And then there are other things that you want to achieve. There are reports that needs to be generated. There are different calculations that the solution that you're using doesn't actually support.
Right.
So either you do it on the side on your own, or you have this internally developed Excel matrix that run magic things that you don't really understand and so on.
Because today it's like when like the marketing department goes to Manfred and says, okay, what is our return on investment on a certain campaign, or how much can we spend in the Danish market, like to drive the Burger King campaign, whatever. You would say, okay, please give me 1 or 2 weeks, I will figure it out. And in the marketing videos for AI tools, I see that you can just put in a prompt, give me the dashboard of the return on investment on this campaign, and then out of some magic, like the tool is able to get into Manfred's Excel table and into another database maybe, and creates a dashboard that will help like the marketing manager come to decision immediately, because those 2 or 3 weeks it is necessary today to come up with like a dashboard, which is usually not convenient, because then the feedback is okay, it's not exactly what I wanted to know, so I have to go back. So I 100% like buy into this kind of vision, but it feels that we are like super far away. So Manfred will definitely come up with GDPR stuff, and we cannot upload data anywhere, and we don't have a contract with this AI tool, and therefore we cannot use it. And yes, there are competitors using it, but we should sue them because it's not legal. So have you seen this discussion?
Yes, and I actually been in these discussions just a couple of days ago, where one company had a challenge. The current set of tools that they were using within this area did not facilitate some of the calculations that they need to do. So they had to do it manually, and it took hours and hours every month. So instead of sharing the data together with them, we discussed through what are the expectations, what are the requirements, what is it that you're trying to achieve. And then we took more or less what they explained into an LLP and started to discuss the problem. Eventually, we fine-tuned the problem so that it became a prompt, not specifically saying exactly everything, but in natural language, explaining this is the problem, how would you solve it? Without specifying tools, what type of company, what it is that we don't want to share or anything like that. And the result back was either you can do a script like this that you run within Excel or a Google spreadsheet, or you could do an external script that processes CSV data, or you could do something like this. And with this, we have our personal developer that is working directly with us, just like Manfred would normally do, but the response is direct.
Okay, but this sounds to me like a huge organizational conflict, and it really reminds me of what happened like 15, 20 years ago with e-commerce. And e-commerce, usually, the e-commerce people that started e-commerce 15, 20 years ago were somewhere between like 25 to 35, and they fought against the mail order people, the brick and mortar people, and they eventually overtook part of the P&L, because like the others defended their processes and their org chart so hard that no change was possible. And it feels like what you're describing is like a huge change for the CMO. It's a huge change for the CFO, for Manfred, and it's like transformation usually is not happening by ambition because people are so interested. It usually happens because the market is enforcing this. So can that mean that like we are seeing the same cultural fight again, implementing this AI stuff like we saw with e-commerce?
I would say yes. We will definitely see implications, and the example that I just gave is also sort of a big no-no. You should never encourage your different departments to build their own things. But if you say that if you give them a set of tools and instruction of how to use this as experiments, and then when you have achieved what it is that you're trying to achieve, you take this as not a ready solution, but a proof of concept that have been validated, and show it to the right people so that they can implement it in the best way. Because as we talked about, we're always at full capacity. And if we give the ability to these different departments to actually solve some of these capacity constraints to free up time, then maybe that will make you able to challenge within your market in a totally different way.
Okay, with the last 90 seconds, what have been like in the last 2-3 months the most convincing examples of AI reductions you have seen with standard organization, or like older organizations where you say, okay, that's the right way to do it. They have like a very fresh or refreshing view on this. That's the right momentum how to do it.
I wouldn't say that I have seen any great examples, to be honest. But the examples that I have seen that are good is where they start at two ends at the same time. They start to build a strategy, a way of working. They start to look at how can we work with our data, at the same time as they communicate internally that these tools or this way of working is approved to start experiments in small silos. So we have a big initiative going on at the same time as we start to do the small things within the organization.
From 100 companies, if you go out of Berlin, 100 companies that are like working with screens, I would say, because it's like the ones that have the first AI impact. How many do have an AI kind of panel strategy view on a corporate level? What do you think?
It depends on the country, I would say. So some countries are much more pushing towards AI and enabling it within the country itself, while some other countries are saying, this is something up for the entrepreneurs to create something that we can use. Okay. And then we have the big corporations that think that, okay, this is something that we need to look at, but we need to first understand the risks and the implications before we can do it.
Like on the lower end or higher end?
I would say that Germany are definitely pushing forward, but there are other countries that are pushing much harder.
It's a very political quote here. We can go in much more in the podcast. Karl, thank you for your time here, and
thank you.
Once I want to discuss a bit further on like the AI effects, there's a panel at the e-commerce stage at 3 p.m. Talking about like why Chinese companies are winning. Thank you, Karl.
Thank you.